All right, welcome everybody to tasting number 128 of the Saratoga Whiskey Club. We keep rolling here. It's only the end of March, and I think we've done like 8 tastings already this year, so it's kind of crazy. But this is a really fun one tonight. I know bourbon is always popular when I put email out there for people. I always get some people signing up pretty quickly because bourbon is really, really popular. And there's always good bourbon to be found too, especially when we go down to Kentucky and get great bottles like we have for tonight. A lot of these, actually, all of these you cannot get here in New York. So you can get versions of them, but not these specific bottles. You can get them probably sent to New York from other places, but you're not going to find them in New York. But with that said, bunch of people online tonight. We have a few people here in person. There is a scorecard if you feel like scoring. There was a link in the email that I sent out. And yeah, so 7 bourbons tonight. We have a great lineup. Actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the 7 are bottles that I brought back from Kentucky from last fall. And 1 bottle was provided by Dave Tobias, who's with us tonight online, courtesy of Sealbox in Maryland, or no, in DC, wherever they are. They're somewhere, they're online. So they're somewhere in the interwebs. Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We got 7 bourbons tonight. So if you have questions, feel free to chat away, speak up. We'll talk about tasting notes as we go through these as well. Most of them are over 50%, so be careful. Don't consume too quickly. You need to last throughout. Keep your palate going as well. Drink lots of water. I suggest with each of these, have almost a full Glencairn or a full glass of water in between each of these, just to keep your palate fresh and your body in good shape. But all right, so we're going to start with Jeptha Creed. A couple of you have been with me to Jeptha Creed. They're one of those newer distilleries in Kentucky. They are women-owned, which is kind of cool. There's not a lot of women-owned distilleries in the US, but they're very proud of that. They're also a grain-to-glass distillery, so they grow pretty much everything that they use in their whiskeys, which is great. We like that. And they're pretty transparent about what goes into the mash bill or the recipe for their bourbon. But this one was a special release that just happened to coincide with my November group when I was down in Kentucky last fall. This is a release that happened on Veterans Day. They are, I'm just going to pull up my notes here. Hey, Tony.
Hey, how are you?
Actually, you know what? Did I make enough placemats? Another one. I think I got another one. Just realized. Yeah, so they're always doing something with the veterans. I can't remember their history with it, but let me see. I thought there was something here. Yeah, so they it's also their anniversary. So November 11th, Veterans Day, is their anniversary. So they always come out with a special release on Veterans Day. And they actually have military members come to the distillery and sign barrels for this special bourbon. And then they donate part of the proceeds to the Veterans Club. So very cool. And so they started selling this on November 11th. I can't remember when I was there, but it was right around that time. But this one is 100 proof. So it's technically bottled in bond, but they don't say bottled in bond on their label here. So they must not be aging it in a bonded warehouse. And I don't know if it's 4 years old because they don't have an age statement on this one either. But 100 proof. Interesting thing about Jeptha Creed is they use, they're one of the big users of bloody butcher corn, which sounds horrible. It's really not anything to do with blood. There's not, death happening in the fields. It's in a horror movie. It's just a varietal of heirloom corn that they use, which is a very kind of blood colored kernel. So that's where the name comes from, but it's bloody butcher corn. And this one is 25% bloody butcher corn, 25% heirloom white corn, 25% Bruce's blue corn, 20% malted rye, and 5% malted barley. So lots of different things going into this first whiskey tonight. So cheers.
Did you say all corn? Cheers.
Well, it's corn. 75% of it's corn, but 3 different varietals.
Yeah, it's.
And then 20% malted rye and 5% malted barley.
Percentage makes out.
Is the corn supposed to be red, white, and blue for Veterans Day?
Yeah, yeah,
Is that the idea?
yeah,
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 that's pretty clever.
yeah. So that is the whole purpose behind it. And they do on the bottle. I don't remember if they mentioned the red, white, and blue, but I did see that somewhere. Maybe in their description, but yeah, pretty cool. But we'll see how it tastes. I have not had this yet, so I have no idea. And typically their whiskeys, early on, I think the first time I visited them was in 2018. And we did they have a warehouse that's up on a hill in a barn. And you sit in recliners and you taste their whiskey out of barrels while you're sitting in a recliner.
Blankets too.
They have blankets. Yeah, we were there. It was really cold one time. And early on, their whiskeys weren't all that great. They were they were pretty good right out of the barrel, but their regular stuff that they were putting in the bottle where they proofed it down, it just wasn't all that. But I would think after all these years, they're getting there with the age and stuff. So,
Charles, what's it mean to be officially to be a high rye?
So the question is, what does it take to be a high rye bourbon? You're going to want at least probably 20%
there's no
rye.
official.
No, there's not an official percentage.
I would think it's a high rye.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, the other varietals of corn will give it some spice too. So you could also maybe confuse some of the spice.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't smell spicy, but you do get that mintiness on the nose, which indicates it might have a little spice.
So this has a very typical Jeptha Creed taste,
Yeah,
which is kind of, to me, it's this earthy, very earthy, like dusty,
that's what I saw.
almost like barn floor kind of note.
That's a good.
It's not, it is sweet, but not super sweet. I get more kind of this earthiness to it,
Yeah.
kind of really grain forward.
That's what I was getting. I'm getting a little chocolate on the palate. The nose is that mintiness, so but
Definitely not your typical
no.
bourbon mash or palate.
I think I kind of like it. Maybe I don't love it, but I like it. I like it enough because it's got that funk, and that's always something.
I hope Jeptha's not watching this video at any point, but we had a Jeptha Creed. I can't remember if it was in the Advent calendar or we had it maybe during Christmas time, or I can't remember, but it was really bad. And we really didn't like it. So
Yeah,
yeah, I remember that.
I remember that.
I remember it too. I still have the bottle and I have a skull and crossbones I put on it because I remember it. It tasted like soil. And I
Yeah.
don't want
It was
you know.
Well, I mean, I am getting a little bit of hint of that with this, unfortunately.
No, this is better.
This is
Yeah,
better
it
for
is
sure,
better. It's better for
but
sure.
it is that
Before
same
but I
kind of
remember
palette profile.
When
It's
I
this
saw it on here, I was. a little
dust
bit-
bomb, like, I don't know.
Yeah, I was a little
kinda
bit apprehensive when I saw the
cobwebs.
name Jeptha Creed because it was.
Yeah.
This is better, though. I gotta say, it's better than the other one.
Are other people finding the nose light, like pretty light? I'm having trouble catching the nose, but
Yeah,
I'm trying to track if there's something wrong with my senses rather.
Maybe a little bit on the nose.
The nose, I think, is more typical bourbon. I mean, I get a little like
Yeah.
caramel and wood on the nose, but not on the palate.
Right, I agree.
How long have they been distilling for? Sorry if I missed that.
So Jeptha Creed, let me see when they open their doors.
Young. They're young.
Yeah, but they're not that
Give
young
an age.
anymore. I mean, they're older than a lot of places nowadays.
Bourbon's 12 to 15% rye. It says high rye bourbon between 20 to 30.
Right.
Haven't had a lot of their stuff.
They're not saying online, but they've got to be like at least 6 years old, because I was there in 2018, and I think they were a couple years old at that point. So they're kind of in between Louisville and Lexington. They're right on the interstate. You can actually see it as you're driving by. Yeah, they're not putting it on their website when they started, which is kind of stupid. What was interesting is today I had one of the founders of Casey Jones Bourbon in the shop, and Cody, and actually they're putting out some pretty good product. They're in northern Tennessee, but they're making bourbon. They're not making Tennessee whiskey, they're making bourbon. And one of the places that they were sourcing from was Jeptha Creed. And it was kind of interesting. I was surprised by that, because when I taste their bourbon, it doesn't have any of this kind of note to it. They do source from a few other places, including Bardstown Bourbon Company and Green River and MB Roland. So, you know, I don't know if what I tasted actually came from Jeptha Creed or not, but they are getting some of their whiskey from them.
2016, yeah.
2016?
This one they
Okay.
opened, yeah.
So they opened in 2016. So 7 years, that's that's, you know, it's a good amount of time.
You think they're younger than that? But then you gotta remember, what is it? This is no age statement, so it could be 2 years.
Yeah, it's hard to know how old this whiskey is. All right, so that was just a palate cleanser.
Yeah, it was a little rough around the edges, but better than.
I truly, that was not part of the tasting. I had my core bottles, and then I always kind of look for a intro whiskey, and that was the intro whiskey for tonight, even though it happened to be a special release.
Does set the bar pretty low.
I think that bottle was close to $100, so it wasn't a cheap bottle.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I wouldn't have it all. I mean, it's drinkable, you know.
Okay, you guys ready to move on?
Yep.
Lots of whiskey tonight. All right, I'm gonna have a little piece of chocolate. Okay. So when
Juicy fruit on the nose there.
Yeah.
when I went to Jeptha Creed back in 2018, I also went to Wilderness Trail for the first time. And we did this really great kind of experience with them, where the master distiller let us go into his laboratory, and he spent like almost an hour going over yeast and all these different things, and was really, it was an incredible visit. And I was able to go back last fall which was only my second time there. And
That's it.
they had this bottle available for sale, and we tasted quite a few bottles while we were there, but this one really stood out. This is their oldest release to date. This is an 8-year bottled in bond bourbon. It is a rye mash bill. It's not a wheated bourbon, but I thought it was just fantastic. So I'm excited. I was excited to get a bottle and bring it back for us all to taste. This one is also 100 proof. It is bottled in bond. And one of the things that Wilderness Trail does, which also Peerless does, when we're having 3 whiskeys from Peerless tonight, they use a sweet mash. So between each run of distillation, they actually clean everything out. They're not using anything from the previous batch, which would be a sour mash. This is a sweet mash. So literally the cooker, the fermenting tanks, everything just gets cleaned out, and it's just a new process, which I actually like. It's very expensive to do that because you're having to clean everything out, and it's much easier just to use some of the old and just continue the mash like a sourdough. That's what they always say. They compare it to sourdough yeast. You're just kind of carrying it over and making a new batch of bread. But they do a sweet mash there.
Just had my starter before I came.
There you go.
My sourdough stuff.
So yeah, 8 years old. I can't remember their opening date. Let me see if I can find it here. Let's see, family tree. Here we go. They were just purchased by Campari literally a week before I visited them last fall, and we had a really fun time there. And I talked to the master distiller and asked him, what that meant, for the distillery, because sometimes when these distilleries get purchased by large companies, and Campari is a very large Italian company, they lose some of their direction maybe, or their desire to be who they were. And he was very certain that they were going to keep on track and continue down the path of Wilderness Trail. So that was good to hear.
Black cherry, almost Dr. Pepper. It's not fresh on the palate, is it? No.
So dried fruit on the palate then?
Maybe some dry fruits too. I'm picking that up, and I got a little juicy fruit on the nose. Pretty good, not bad.
Any guys, any thoughts? I like it. I think this is a really nice, it's quite sweet. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
But this is a rye mash bill, so it's pretty, you don't get a lot of the rye spice.
No.
You get more of the sweetness from the corn.
Yep.
And the oak, the 8 years in the oak. Oak can give a bitter taste too. You get bitterness. Rebecca's getting some bitterness.
It's probably the rock. My least favorite.
Charles, did you say the proof on this one?
Yeah, so this is bottled in bond. So 100 proof.
This is very well balanced. And
Yeah.
I don't get the bitterness like the Jeptha Creed had on the finish. I
Okay.
really like this.
I think it's a really solid release by them. Let me see here. I've got some interesting, let me see if I got some notes
Yeah,
here.
but it is a good balance. It's a good
Um,
balance.
So I'll read a little bit. This is from Bourbon Obsessed website. Says, if you are a Wilderness Trail fan like I am, then these are exciting times. While it seems like yesterday when I tried their first bourbon back in 2018, well, there you go. Apparently it has been a bit longer, 4 years since the past, and we now have an 8-year-old bottled in bond bourbon. This is their rye mash bill, so 64% corn,
I'm at 86.
24% rye, and 12% malted barley.
Pretty good.
Uh-huh. Got it.
So pretty high percentage of rye.
I've tried two Jeptha
This is
Creeks.
definitely,
The other
you would
ones,
call this a high rye bourbon.
they paint on.
It's
This
done with
one
a
is
sweet
little
mash, so
better,
starting
but
from
I
scratch
think
every
if I was
time.
In Kentucky.
Distilled in their copper column still.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. And let's see their notes. So this is a small batch, which is 18 to 20 barrels. So not a big, well, I mean, 20 barrels isn't a small amount, but it's pretty small compared to a big distillery. First batch was only sold at the distillery. Second batch was sold only in Kentucky. So you're not going to see this 8-year bourbon here in New York. But the notes, he has the nose, vanilla, cherry, caramel, oak, honey, cinnamon, creme brulee, light leather, and cigar ash, but in a good way, moderate alcohol. Taste, honey, caramel, cherry candy. I do get the cherry.
Yeah.
There is definitely some cherry going on there, and cinnamon. Finish, the flavors continue and pick up some black pepper and cayenne spice, cinnamon spice and cherry linger. Little barrel char, fairly long finish with a moderate burn.
Is the,
Definitely fruity.
yeah, I agree on that.
Nice to see Rob in the house.
Hi, Rob. Say hi.
Rob,
Hello, everybody.
Aye.
Mm.
Yeah, Kalila is our next bourbon.
I've been waiting for that one.
It's an inside joke.
Colila, famous for their delicious drams.
We will find one that you
Yeah,
like
drops off on the finish.
if you keep
Oh,
trying.
I've liked some. It's just rare.
I know.
That cracker was
You're a big man to admit that, Rob.
Someday Colila will get it right.
So what do you guys think overall on this one? Yay, nay?
I like it better than the first one.
Like it better than the first one?
It-
Okay.
Agreed.
oh yeah,
Good 90,
I like that note.
barely. in the-
I think it's really good.
yeah, I
Yeah,
like this.
I like the balance, and I like the nose on this the best.
Definitely a good balance.
Dropped off a little on the finish. But I thought it was pretty good.
Good palate.
I know you don't have this. Do you have any other wilderness trail at the shop at this point?
no, not yet.
I get that.
We will. I'll let you know, Dave. There are some out there. We just haven't brought them in yet.
We drank all of ours, so we need more.
Yeah, you guys were with me that last fall there. That was
That was fun.
pretty awesome there with Pat Heist
Where was it?
at Wilderness Trail.
Last.
Their
Yeah.
program been impacted by the acquisition.
What's that?
The Wilderness Trail, after being acquired, I was told that they had kind of pulled back on their single barrel store pick type barrels.
Yeah.
Yeah, so while they're doing the transition, they did pause, because their distribution is changing, because Campari has their own distribution network. So like our distributor here in New York is not going to be carrying Wilderness Trail anymore. It's now going to come through, I think, Southern, which is horrible, but it is. So, Campari being the big company that they are, and the change of distribution is that right there, that means they're going to pause any of those programs until that's all
To see if I want to adjust.
kind
the
of
scores.
normal again. So,
Moonlight.
Yeah.
It's got great nose.
okay. I have a mouthful of cracker. All right, so this next bottle is pretty special.
Fabulous nose.
Oh, the nose is phenomenal.
We were lucky to get a bottle of this, thanks to Dave in the room. But Dave has been able to get a few bottles for us so far from Sealbox down in DC. And they work with different people to have these special releases.
Stone fruit category.
So I'm going to read some of the notes that Dave sent,
Lovely.
but this is called Lorelei or Lorelei, rare 16-year-old sipping whiskey, specially selected barrel proof, bottled by Henry Wright and Company out of Baltimore, Maryland. So historic, okay, actually, let me let Holly in here. So I'm going to read what Dave sent me. There's a bunch of notes here. Historically, Lorelei was actually a Maryland rye, not a bourbon. They modeled the new label on the old whiskey. Lorelei is part of the Maryland Heritage Series. The first 3 bottles were rye, followed by this one. They have since released something called Pride of Indiana, which is a 15-year-old American whiskey. Sealbox sells these whiskeys, but they're not part of bringing these to market. It's just this guy, Justin and George. And let's see here. So these two people are from different stores in the Maryland market. So Justin is from Allview and George is from Drug City. I've been to Drug City. It's a pretty great store. And they bought 10 barrels. So these two stores, they ended up buying 10 barrels. One was empty. One was set aside as a honey barrel. Must have been really good. Two didn't play well with the others, but they were fine with each other.
I love it.
And then the remaining 6 barrels were used to create Lorelei. This is a 16-year-old bourbon. There were only 937 bottles of this. And the barrels came from Seagram's, and which became MGP, and lived their entire lives in Indiana. The barrels were filled on June 7th of 2006 and sat in Indiana. And then Henry acquired the barrels in 2015, sight unseen. Justin and George bought them from Henry, also sight unseen. That might explain why one of them ended up dry. No one was watching that. The mash bill is the typical Seagram's old school mash bill of 75 corn, 21 rye, 4% malted barley. They were being sold for, I think we ended up paying about $240 for this bottle. But yeah, so this is a very special whiskey. This is probably from a cost standpoint, this is our most special whiskey of the night. This one is only 48.9% ABV. So that's another reason why I included it earlier in the tasting. Before the Peerless,
It's just super smooth.
which we start to jump up in proof. So
far,
Did you say barley had sweet?
my highest score.
rye would add spice.
But barley,
Barley doesn't do at 4%. It's not going to add anything really.
but what would it?
Creaminess.
Yeah.
Malty, creamy.
The spice, the 21 is the spice, is what you're saying.
Yeah, the rye.
That's excellent.
These bottles were for sale at Sealbox for about a minute.
Save some for later. That's good.
They sold out very quickly, because unless you lived in Maryland and went to one of these 2 stores at 8 o'clock in the morning, Friday, you couldn't get them. And Sealbox charged $30, $40 a bottle more too.
This is why not, but it's.
Almost sold as fast as our single barrels. Someday Sealbox will catch up to us, but you know, it might take a while.
Yeah. Well, I love Peerless. I could just tell you,
I've got these two. Absolutely.
It's
I love all
corky,
things
right?
Peerless, so I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to the next week.
What do you guys think of this one?
This is phenomenal, classic.
I love it. I think it's really tasty.
If Vinny used my word, classic, this seems like a classic bourbon palate.
Just coat your mouth with spice, but it's smooth as silk.
That's the beauty of companies,
Yeah.
and you might get one.
Yeah,
after.
my one.
But again, you can say it either way, I think, because then there's this. with the-
Dave, did they say Lorelei or Laurely?
So that's industry like that.
I think I've heard it pronounced both ways. Uh,
I know, no.
But I think
16, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, this is tasty. I like this one.
Doesn't taste like Holy at all.
I've heard both. They do it crazy.
So you think it tastes like the Lucky Sevens, Holly?
It's very, I'm not used to older MGP tasting like that. It's got a lot of cherry for me.
I have the Lucky Seven.
Like a medicine cherry,
Yeah, you shop.
which I typically get from Barton.
It's like a medicinal maker's mark.
Gotta be exceptional.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, this past weekend, it was exceptional.
I mean, easy sipping, that's for sure. It's a pretty crushable 16-year-old whiskey.
Yeah.
It says 96. Is that 96?
It's 97.8, the proof. This is bottle number 197, batch 4.
Very nice.
Why don't they- why don't they just pick really- You know what I'm saying? Why don't they just do?
So just a quick note on the Maryland Heritage Series on the back of the bottle. It says American whiskey evolved regionally in the early days. In the South, corn grew plentifully, leading to the creation of bourbon. In the North, farmers grew rye, leading to a distinct style known as Maryland rye whiskey. The demand was great for this bold and spicy whiskey, and by the early 1900s, there were over 50 distilleries operating in Maryland with an output that rivaled that of Kentucky. The Maryland Heritage Series pays homage to the many of the great Maryland distilleries and its storied past. So I don't know, Dave, was Laurely the name of a distillery back in the day?
Well, they're doing.
It was a brand. I don't think it was a distillery. It was just a brand.
Okay.
You look at people that collect the bottles, the old bottles, you can see this, the style of this is very, I mean, they lifted the style in order to make this particular label. They just changed some of the wording.
Okay. Well, it's definitely a good bottle, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing it, Dave.
Okay, I'm glad I will bring it to the table.
Appreciate it.
It's funny at 8 o'clock in the morning to see a whole bunch of people standing in line, and this was in, I don't know, October or something, and it was a chilly morning. People bring food. Justin puts out a couple of barrels. He covers one with open bottles, and other people bring bottles and set it out there, and it's party time. Everybody's sipping away
I tell you,
at 8 o'clock in the morning on their way to work.
Buffalo
I
Trace.
saw that this weekend.
Oh, wow. This was on a work day. This was like during the week.
Oh, yeah, it was a Friday morning. That's typically when they did, that's when they did all their releases for the Heritage Series on a Friday morning at 8 a.m. I mean, actually 8 a.m. people started lining up like at 6:30. But he would open the store maybe 8:30-ish. He's the owner. He's not supposed to open until 9, but he let people.
New York still, right?
It's fun.
Here's some tasting notes. Nose is a medley of red fruit. This moves to candied orange peel and baking spice. The palate has a touch of cocoa nibs. Then there's a burst of ripe cherries, cinnamon, nutmeg, and sage. The lower proof cask strength delivers a smooth texture that is mouth-watering. Nice punch of oak towards the back palate finish to remind you of the age. Overall, it is the sweet oak and fruit.
Orange and red fruit.
That-
Maybe that's
that
why,
Describes it pretty well.
maybe that's why I got peach.
Yeah, that's a pretty good
Yeah.
tasting note there.
Mhm.
We got rhubarb. Just me.
You're the only one. It's your world.
Probably because I don't really eat rhubarb.
We're just trying to get by it. It's your world.
Trying to sell it. Say it once, everyone starts saying.
So Chad here says rhubarb and nobody agrees with him. So
It's not that. Really don't know what rhubarb really tastes like, so if you know.
It's tart.
Yeah.
It's actually.
Probably why I don't like it.
My grandma used to make
all right,
amazing
drink water.
rhubarb pie. Growing up.
Who needs strawberry rhubarb? Let's just go
Yes.
straight rhubarb.
But yes.
Eat that sweet.
I may have to try that one day. I haven't tried it.
I love it.
My wife made a rhubarb syrup.
Mm.
Usually mixed with like carbonated water for
If I mix some bourbon with the rhubarb.
Yeah. But it's big, they warm it up, it's a big slab of vanilla, French vanilla ice cream on it.
There you go.
So the tart sweetness.
That's true.
Can we look at that? Try to look at that Laura leaf or pass that around?
Of course.
Thank you.
Interesting looking bottle.
All right, so now we're gonna move on to Peerless.
Cool.
All right.
Very good.
How's this? Ominous chuckle.
So Peerless has a great story.
Or whistle pick.
Oh, it's got a lot of caramel.
They were a brand way back in the day that was revived by the great grandson Corky
Corky.
in Louisville.
You got any stories for us, Court?
Really, really great place to visit. Highly recommend it if you haven't been. And they also do a sweet mash, so similar to Wilderness Trail.
Toffee caramel, but yeah, toffee.
They're cleaning out their stills and everything. They're mashed on all that.
Oh, yeah. Toffee, maybe even a little like.
And in 2021, I believe it was 21, they released their first double oak, which we did have as a club. I remember getting a bottle. And we were very impressed by it. And I haven't actually tasted this version, the 2022 edition. This doesn't really make it up here. It's too bad. I think at one point they said that the double oak was going to get up to New York, but it doesn't really make it up here. So, you know, double oak, so it's aged twice in new charred oak, 2 full barrel extractions. You know, they just really go for it. This one is 108.4 proof, so 54.2%. Peerless is truly making some great whiskey. They really care about everything they do. And they're definitely one of those special, really hard to get. These are, their bottlings are becoming really hard to get. But yeah, look at the color, super dark,
Coffee.
double oak.
Mocha.
Yeah.
Oh, totally.
I struggle with the nose. but-
Mocha coffee.
Oh, this is delicious.
Oh, my God.
Oh, man, I love this one.
Yeah.
Wow.
Look at how it sticks to the
Yeah.
glass.
What about the finish?
Yeah.
Yeah, look at that.
This one is way too high.
Sexy leg.
caramely.
Glass of steel in there.
Lots of
Yeah,
caramel.
these are
Yeah.
legit.
Caramel on the, more on the finish,
More on the, yeah.
I think.
What's this cost? And you said we can't get it?
Yeah, I can't get it. So all of the Peerless bottles are pretty expensive. They're all in the range of 120 to 130 plus dollars. You know, even the regular rye and bourbon that we've had in the shop is, you know, up there in that
So
kind of $80
I
range.
think it has like-
But these are more limited releases, so they're well over $100.
Maybe ABV, that's the-
I don't have
the
this
warm
one, but I have
finish.
it right in the phone in the box.
54, yeah.
The
Yeah.
pepper doesn't, the spice doesn't linger.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, it does.
Carl, should I be like checking the New Hampshire website for all these things as well as we go through some of this stuff?
There is a little.
You never know.
Yeah, you're gonna find the regular Peerless. You'll find their small batch bourbon and you'll find their rye. I'm sure New Hampshire gets that.
Every single bottle is listed on their site in the state.
Even the double oak?
No. Every single bottle is available in the state of New Hampshire.
Oh, I
listed on
see.
our website, so
Yeah.
I can check some of this stuff as it goes through. I'm sure a lot of it's allocated out to politicians and other shits.
Live free or die.
We'll never see it, but maybe worth a shot.
We get the small batch bourbon and the rye occasionally in our shop, but it's pretty rare to get any of these higher releases. There's always a possibility of doing a single barrel with them at some point. They're just very expensive, and we're not in a position yet to do that, but would be fun. Would be great to do our own barrel with them.
Twice distilled double oak stuff. It's always-
I'll read some of the notes on this one. These are the notes that come right from Peerless. The nose opens with sweet oak, accented with orange zest and cedar. Aromas of tobacco and herbs soon join. The palate, the first sip leads with a honey sweetness before swiftly shifting to cinnamon and spicy oak. Another sip adds leather for an earthy balance while displaying an amazing body. Finish continues to celebrate the viscous mouthfeel with notes of sweet toasted oak and dry cocoa. And viscous is really truly a good word for this whiskey. I mean, it definitely is a mouth coating, sticky. It sticks to the glass.
Maybe that's part of the toffee that
Yeah.
I got.
Toffee, yeah.
Yeah.
This is double. So it's original.
Those are pretty good notes.
Yeah,
Goes from one new barrel to, but how long does it stay in each barrel? Or does it depend on the distillery or?
It does. Sometimes they tell you, sometimes they don't. So
There's no age statement on this, right?
no age on this one, but I do think though that it's at least 4 years old. I think everything that they're releasing now is well over 4 years old. But they don't put an age on this bottle.
Didn't they tell us we went there when I was on your tour, didn't they tell us they were not going to release any bourbon younger than 4 years?
Yeah, I
I
believe.
think they told us that.
Yep. Yeah, the rye, when they released the rye was less than 4 years old.
Right, yeah, but not the bourbon.
I think that was 3 and the bourbon was at least
I think
4.
my allergies.
Yeah. So if most likely, this is probably closer to 5 or more with it being double
I
oak.
was outside weight. My allergies
On remembering the tour, did Corky Taylor, the founder, go to prep school with the Allman Brothers?
Yes.
Yes.
They give them that
Yeah.
name in French.
Yeah.
The Allman Brothers were there because their mother worked for the school.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And
And
they got
Al
it.
Gore, who they all hated.
Yeah, Al Gore was there too. They all got into a
They
lot
got
of
in
trouble.
trouble.
Yeah,
No.
a lot of trouble.
Naughty boys.
And the great grandfather or the grandfather or Corky's dad was with what's his name in World War II?
Oh, yeah, the gun.
The gun. Remember the gun? Pat, was it Patton?
Yes.
With
I
the
think-
silver, ivory pistols.
What?
I think it was Patton.
Pershing.
No, it was Patton.
Yeah, he has a
Yeah.
pistol from.
That's a cat. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was like Patton's right hand man who ended up getting his pistol from Patton and brings it out every once
It
in a
was his
while.
admin or something, right?
Yeah, he was like an admin guy. Really cool story. I mean, sometimes you think about these newer distilleries that are opening and some of them take an old story and try and make it theirs, and it doesn't really work too well.
Yeah.
Whereas Peerless truly continued the generations of people, so it's truly the same family. It's just there was a big period where nothing was going on, but it's still the same people with the same passion too.
Yeah, I haven't really checked into that.
Yeah, I think they're distillery number 5
See their taste.
in Kentucky, so it goes way back.
He's a really good director. So.
Yeah.
It's actually on the bottle.
Okay. Well, didn't they stayed open during, they stayed open during what Prohibition, and then they were making like.
Yeah, they were making bourbon for medicinal purposes during
My
Prohibition.
favorite line from Pat is.
Oh, DS, it's 50. They were distillery
Yeah.
at 50.
Everything's fine.
Dying for his country. Win a war.
And they actually had to fight to keep that 50 because when they closed the distillery, you would normally lose that number. And, you know, when you reopen, you would get a new number, which would be in the thousands at that point. So they had to fight in court to keep the 50.
By the way, this,
The director.
what is it?
Some amazing.
How do you say it?
Jeptha.
Jeptha.
20,034. That's their number. 20,000.
Oh, yeah. So Jeptha Creed, but that's the US though. That's not Kentucky.
Oh, is that US, not Kentucky? I thought it was a Kentucky number. It says D.
Oh, yeah, DSP Kentucky.
I don't know how.
All right, well, maybe, so Jeptha Creed, Lucas just saw in the bottle. Jeptha Creed is DSP KY 20,034. So to keep the number 50 for Peerless is pretty amazing.
There was a cool chart at Green River. I'm gonna find it on, but I guess it, they like skipped a bunch of numbers.
Oh, really?
Something happened, yeah, because I was looking and they had the original 1 through something, 1 through 50, and then it jumped to like 15,000, something happened.
Oh, really?
I gotta
So
try. and
what
remember
was
the story.
Green River?
They were a pretty early on number, but they have 2 numbers. It was some story because they changed their name. That's
Oh.
not their original name.
Okay.
I'll get the photo and I'll upload it or see if I
Oh,
can.
remember Woodford's number, they were throwing that around and then they got dinged
Yeah.
and their number is now way higher.
Yeah.
They were like 13 or something.
punishment.
They were making a big deal of it.
We give you a
closed.
higher number.
That makes sense because there was a distillery on Woodford's site, but Woodford is fairly new. They're
Right,
from what,
Yes, they tried to use the original
Yeah.
number that wasn't really Woodford. It was the brother, whoever owned that property.
Right.
previous distillery, yeah.
What do you guys think of the Double Oak?
Love it. It's
Yeah.
great.
Love it.
Pretty amazing, right?
That's really good.
Yeah, so good. I think I like this one better than the last one we tried too, because I tried it a couple times because I was trying to decide whether to buy an overpriced bottle that was online, and I decided not to, but still really liked it. And so I remember it. It was pretty recent.
The Double Oak, the first one?
Yeah, I remember the first one we tasted quite well because I tried it since then. I saved half of it
Okay.
to make this decision about buying a bottle, and I really love that one too. But I think this one has a bit more flavor to it. Same flavor.
You're such a professor, my God.
Oh, I am.
Love to have you.
You know, you're saving little bits so that you might be able to try them side by side with something in the future. It's great.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
Charles, is this generally not available?
You're doing a research project.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Brian, this is not available. Pretty hard to even get down in Kentucky. When they release this, it goes really fast. It just happened to be, we were down there around that time. You might be able to get it at the distillery, but probably not. It's pretty hard to come by.
Yes, I can't wait to try that one. Fire roasted toffee.
All right, so we're gonna move on to our next Peerless.
Marshmallows,
So when I was there in October,
big marshmallows.
so I was there in October and
Oh, yes.
November last fall.
It's like I just opened my bag.
Yeah.
In October, we did a tour and
Yeah.
this was one of the bottles that was available so they do store picks with some stores, but they also release their own single barrels at the distillery, which are barrels that they've chosen to be representative of, what they produce. And when you do the tour, you end up in the tasting room and they'll let you try their single barrels that are for sale. There's usually a rye and a bourbon. There might be a couple of each. But this one was one of those where we all were like, holy crap.
Flavor explosion.
Holy crap.
This one's called Fire Roasted Toffee. They give names to each of their single barrels when they release them at the distillery. This one was called Fire Roasted Toffee. And on the side, they have a little sticker. It says Fire Roasted Toffee, a single barrel selection with natural notes of smoky caramel and bright citrus. This one is 111.4 proof.
Couple of seconds, then you really get it.
But right in the front of the palate.
Yeah, so this is, all of their single barrels are going to be unique. There's nothing that's going to taste the same, just like all of our barrel picks in the store. They're all unique. Even if it's the same company, they're all going to be different. But everybody loved this one.
Would you say that?
The toffee
Yeah,
overtakes, toffee overtakes everything.
Yeah, 55.7.
55.7.
Did anybody else get marshmallow?
Fire Roasted Toffee. That's what it's called.
I'm not really- I'm getting the fire roast.
Anybody getting marshmallow?
I'm not getting.
No.
Marshmallow. Is that marshmallow burnt?
Rebecca asked me to ask her.
Maybe a little bit of the toasted part, like if you,
Flaming marshmallow.
Yeah, flaming marshmallow maybe, because there is a fair amount of that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Pretty good.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
It's a
great.
good pick.
It's one of those ones where you it can be depressing that it's a single barrel. Like you taste it and you're like, oh, I wish this was a regular release,
But that wouldn't be any fun,
Oh, shush.
That's true. That's true. It's more fun.
right?
It's more fun.
You don't want to just stop and get stuck.
Oh.
You want to keep moving.
I can use this.
The key is to be able to try it. I mean, I don't
Well,
know.
women here, they
For
can
me,
do that.
for me, that's what it's all about. It's not like settling on something and being like, all right, I'm good. I mean, it's delicious. Don't get me wrong. I love this, but I don't know.
It's fun.
Yeah, the tasting different things is definitely the most fun.
Yeah.
part.
I want to go do.
I need to. Seriously.
Oh my God. I'm gonna go next year. Japan.
This is really good, Charles. I'm a big toffee caramel whiskey fan, and this is hitting all the notes.
Yeah, there you go.
This one's good. It's not as
I'm
good.
gonna
as
do
the
it
last one.
right-handed. Make sure it happens.
It's good.
Piece that
But you
out.
like it double oak better. I did.
It also has a nice mouthfeel. Not as thick as the double oak, but still pretty good, pretty viscous in its own way.
Scotch. But they seem to kind of pick up and sort of.
I've had some really wonderful single barrel ryes as well from them that are, unlike any other rye that I've had. So they're definitely doing something there that's special. There's been very little that I've tasted from them that I haven't liked. Some better than others, but nothing has been really horrible.
Just as a point of reference, the only thing available in New Hampshire in the whole state is their straight rye whiskey.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So don't go.
Charles, didn't we have a Peerless single barrel at the track tasting?
Yeah.
Tasting we did at the track. Yeah, that was good too.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah, I think I picked that up in May, before the summer.
This smells phenomenal. I
Yeah.
mean, the whole smell of this is really good.
They're making good stuff.
Fire
Yeah.
better than double oak.
Got the best
I
way they
do.
serve it to
And not many people still know about them. You know, it's like they're right in Louisville.
No, seriously.
But everybody goes to Old Forester or they go to Angels Envy. You know, Peerless is a little bit off the road, but it's right there downtown. Everybody's going to Michter's. You know, Peerless is
I wonder how they smell, but
where you should go.
the fluff-
Oh, with Michter's, there's no slouch either.
Well, and they.
No, I love
distill there.
Michter's and I'm a huge Michter's fan, but Michter's is making mass produced big release stuff. And it's great, but Peerless is doing some very small, really cool stuff. You know,
And that is their distillery, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you know, you're there and that's the only place they make.
yes, right. Whereas Michter's is, yeah, has a big operations in Shively, but
Ah.
The numbers. Caramel. Yeah, the double oak is actually.
They're very
it sits
similar.
there. More caramel and on the nose and it's building.
so one of the people on this trip, so I did a private trip in October and actually both trips in last fall were private, but it was for a birthday. It was 70th birthday. And he called me, I don't know, like 2 or 3 weeks after we got back from Kentucky. And he's like, oh my God, I need more of this fire roasted toffee single barrel. I was like, Vince, I'm sorry, man, it's gone. And I mean, that's the thing with these single barrels. Once they're gone, they're gone. You know, you just have to move on, accept the fact that it was delicious. And you got to taste it, but you know, when it's gone, it's gone.
My cousin.
So-
sent
Oh, they
me-
don't make it at all?
That's the single barrels.
Oh, but they make another one, it's just
Yeah,
not this one.
yeah.
That year.
I mean, they're not trying to make this one. This one just happened to be this one.
Can you get?
But they
I mean,
make-
that's truly what it's all
I get it,
about.
But they
Look at
make,
the label.
they make a fire roasted.
Cash Spread Society.
No,
No, that's what they
Without even saying it,
named
I
this
said,
barrel.
Got it, okay, sorry,
Yeah.
sorry.
that reminds me of the
You
whole.
might have tasted
70s.
it somewhere. I
Sort
told
of.
him.
Each single barrel gets a name,
Got it.
I said to him,
depending on what it
I
tastes
have
like.
this,
Got it.
you have this, because I bought you.
And
He
only
said, "This is
really
also-
good ones get sold
this
at the
is a,
distillery as
for
single
sure."
barrels.
So they like, let's sell this one.
Yeah, but stores, if they do single barrel picks too, they're usually,
Could find one.
they're usually good too.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they're not putting single barrels out unless they really think they're worthy.
Right.
They don't want a bad rap,
Right.
basically. They'll take their lower tasting barrels and batch that together for their regular
Loose
bourbon.
one?
And they'll proof it down a little bit and all that.
Right. So you can control the flavor.
Right.
I got tons of single barrels. If you want to bring any of them.
Is it from the beer?
Once they're gone, they're gone.
Distilleries all day, beers out there.
Who's this?
And they had a lot of single barrel.
Oh, right. Yeah, exactly.
All right, let me pull up some info on this next one.
Would you do barrel it before, like,
He loves the
I
IPA.
like strawberry.
Like this.
I think you might be able
This is yeah, when you bought, when you ended up getting, I think at least 5 of the single barrel.
Beer
from them.
is not good for,
Turns out I have
Like I
this
said,
one that's on the back of
I
this
was a
shirt.
big beer
Back
guy.
of this little-
yeah.
Oh, right. Like this is so light.
Oh, sure, sure, sure.
No.
There's a lot of sugar, but.
Well, I was away, I was drinking a
IPAs.
lot of beer.
Oh.
And my hands are tight.
Yeah, tons of carbs.
Nuts. Nuts.
Okay. So I wrote on the tasting mat and probably in the email, something that wasn't true.
Ruh-roh.
So we're just gonna stop this tasting right now. and,
Refill, do over.
Do over.
I think we just need a reset.
I'm gonna send everybody out new samples and we're gonna do this all over. No, I'm not. I can't. It's all gone. It's gone. But I wrote something about plantation rum, and I don't know where the plantation came from. For some reason, I thought that had something to do with,
Rum barrel.
yeah, I know, but it doesn't
Rum's
say
right, it's the
plantation.
plantation.
anywhere.
Oh, so it's rum barrel, so I have to cross out.
Is plantation on the back?
No, there's
Maybe,
nothing.
maybe that was from the Bardstown tasting.
Yeah,
Maybe
you know, that's what it was.
Yeah.
I was thinking of plantation rum for whatever reason, but it's just rum. So this next one is a special release from Peerless. It is a rum finished bourbon. I will talk about it here.
It is. It's the
Um,
next.
All right, hold up, listen up. All right, so this one, it says, exposing Peerless bourbon to 2 separate casks allows for 2 full barrel extractions. So not double oak, but this is a finish. The result, supercharged notes give this whiskey supreme complexity and mouthfeel. Our dedicated tasting team strategically selects barrels with prominent grain, fruit, and herbaceous notes, as they are complemented well by the extra barrel character, blah, blah, blah. Rum barrel finished bourbon tasting notes. I'm not going to read those yet, but this is, so we got to taste this when we were down there as well. And I thought this was really good. So this was from October, but in November, I went back and they had an absinthe finished bourbon. Oh, no, it was absinthe finished rye. Sorry, not bourbon.
Wow, I don't know about.
And it was a stick of licorice in your mouth. I mean, it was licorice, licorice, licorice. There was no rye character whatsoever. It was anise, licorice. And I was like, holy mackerel, this, I can't even I can't taste anything behind it. So,
Red licorice or black licorice?
black.
Black.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the month before, what got me excited about the absinthe finished rye was this plantation, or not plantation, sorry, rum finished bourbon, because we had this and it was really, I thought, for a finished bourbon, you know, bourbon's pretty difficult to finish in anything, whether it be red wine casks, whatever it is, it's a pretty tough spirit to finish in another type of barrel. But I thought this rum barrel did really well with it, and I haven't had it since, so maybe I'm wrong, but
It's kind of a musty.
let's see.
If you've ever been to the Caribbean after the
Right?
hurricane, that smell is kind of.
This one is 112.6 proof,
No.
so we've gone up a tiny bit, 56.3%.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when you think of rum finished bourbon, you're gonna think sweet, sweet, sweet.
Caramel
getting that.
toffee with the finish.
Is this a regular release for them, the rum?
No, special release. Yeah.
Very special.
Just buy 4.
Maybe a little short too.
It was literally.
Wow, this finish. is
Yeah, so
really-
Angel's Envy does their rye finished in rum,
Finish is
which
still-
actually is great. I mean, it's a dessert whiskey.
Still in my mouth.
Yeah, Doc Swenson's as well. But yeah, it's pretty hard to have corn with rum. I mean, corn is sweet, rum is sweet. However, I thought that this really played well together when we tasted it, but I'm gonna give it a shot here.
It makes it feel so much lighter
Like a little bit of
than the
date.
coffee.
Yeah,
more of a
possibly. I was
spicy
gonna say
taste.
it's more of that molassesy.
Date.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't
Getting
like-
that
You know, the
molasses.
truth is, I think it's gonna be a little hard to pick out the rum after having 5 whiskeys,
Yeah.
Smell.
especially at higher proof these last
Right,
couple.
you know, I can smell it, but I'm just not.
All right, so here are the notes. Here are the notes from the distillery.
Ooh, if it's tasty.
Tastes good.
Right. You know, I'm not gonna like.
Toasted
say
citrus.
No to it, but.
All right, hold on. Toasted citrus and molasses lead off a dark and savory nose. Aromas of sweet cedar, salty air, and a distant coffee house add further intrigue. The first sip is deep, dark, and spicy. Waves of cinnamon, orange bitters, and heavily toasted sugar wash over the palate. Another Taste delivers spicy cedar. They're into that cedar stuff. And fermented dark fruit. While the mouthfeel slowly thickens, the palate evolves during the finish to showcase sweet grasses, complex botanicals, and smoked honey.
Okay.
Cheers.
Smoked honey.
I don't know about smoke.
Pretty
Smash
smash
a lot
good.
of
Smash
stuff,
it.
not on your mouth, I get some. Smash. Like,
It is.
How much smoked honey do people eat?
I have that every morning on my toast.
What, Vegemite?
No, my toast is burnt, so the honey is smoked.
Um,
I was in Australia and I had.
But the
a
salt,
Vegemite
the
sandwich.
brine, right?
It
You
was.
mentioned brine or salt.
It's like a
So
salt
where is
pestle.
that?
No.
So my thought on this is that
It's salty as all get out. It is.
the sweetness comes through from the rum in a subtle way, but the base spirit, the bourbon, is really good. So you're already drinking something that's pretty solid, and you're adding just a little nuance to it that I think is really nice. It's not overwhelming. It's not like Angel's Envy with their rye, you know, where it really the rum takes over and becomes dessert. This is just, I think it's a really nice compliment. It might be a little hard though, after we've had the double oaked and that fire roasted toffee, to really pick out the notes.
A little lost on me. I agree with you.
Wait,
Yeah.
what? No.
Yeah, I get a little bit of like the rum funk on the nose in a really nice way, but it is subtle. You know, you kind of have to search for it. I wonder if we didn't know this was rum finished, if we would be able to identify
I
that.
don't think so.
Very subtle.
It'd be pretty hard. I think that would be really hard.
Other than the
Only
smell,
note
I can pick it
The
up.
smell and on the palate, I get some of that molasses.
I don't know, maybe Holly
That's about
has
the only thing that
other
I
thoughts,
find
but I,
molasses.
I just knew something was, I know everyone loves Peerless and I like it too, but I find Peerless very oak spicy. Like every Peerless I try is they list it, but it's like tons of like this dense oak, not over oaked, but oak spices.
Yep.
And that's a very spicy whiskey to me. So the rum I really like because I gave it some weight in the middle of the palate that I don't get on the other ones because I can't really get through the spice. So I really like this one. It's kind of like a rum finished rye for me because I find it so spicy.
but very different from Angel's Envy though.
Oh yeah, Angel's Envy is very sweet.
Yeah,
Even if I
super
like the
sweet.
rye too. Yeah,
Super
I like this better.
This does lean more towards the honey though than the other two. The others are more caramel sort of, I mean, it's a different kind of
I have to
sweetness,
go.
I think.
And Rich, we did that rum class last summer and I mean, now that we don't know the cask, I mean, some of the rums are very citrusy, you know, kind of like that honey, creamy, creamy honey, lemon sort of quality to it, not that heavy, sweet sugar molasses. So I wonder what the rum was. Rob, yeah, find it a very spicy whiskey, all the Peerless. I actually find their rye less aggressive with spice on the palate than the bourbon. I don't know why. I mean, I like them, but they're pretty intense for me.
So Rob, when it comes to bourbon and oak spiciness, what bourbons don't have that you really like?
So Buffalo Trace generally is way too oaked. I'm confused as to why people like it if they don't like sucking on oak trees. That said, Elijah Craig, like the next one, the next one you're trying, best one of the night. It's very good.
You're already there?
Yeah, I've been there for like half an hour now. I don't know what you guys are. The Elijah Craig, just the standard Elijah Craig, fantastic sipper, fantastic in cocktails, very chocolatey flavor, perfectly fine. A higher oak would be an Old Forester 1920, but also has caramel and other wonderful flavors to it. These tonight generally are just incredibly oaky, and you know it's a flavor if you're into it, but I think it.
But you know what? The truth is, there are a lot of bourbon drinkers that are into that really like that oaky spiciness. You know, because that's also what they're used to. You know, Buffalo Trace, for example, like you said, is super sought after, right? So you have all of the Buffalo Trace products that are the most sought after products in the world when it comes to bourbon. So
I mean, I'm not telling people that they're wrong about what they like.
No, I hear you.
I don't get it. I don't, you know, it's not for me.
Right. Okay, fair, totally fair.
You know what's funny about?
I like both. I love Heaven Hill. I think their products are fantastic. Really, probably to me, much more fantastic than Buffalo Trace products, but you know, again, everybody has their own perspective and taste profiles. But Peerless, to me, I really love it, even if it is oaky, spicy, whatever. It comes off to me in a really well made way.
Yeah, I agree. I like it. I like a spicy bourbon.
I did take all of the other ones and I mixed them together and put them in a Manhattan. And it is quite lovely.
Like a legacy bottle.
Wow, an innovator.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Damn. Wow. It's on another level.
I know I'm totally off base.
He's definitely not a professor.
Should be.
I don't know. That sounds
I think he's the man.
that's he may be getting an email from Harvard tonight.
He's the mad professor.
He's a mad professor. That's right. All right, we'll wrap up this rum finish.
I'm waiting for the Elijah Craig so I can go back and finish these. But I want to make sure I
You're
can
gonna
taste
finish
all
them?
the before my tongue is done.
That's a lot to finish.
Yeah.
All right, I told everybody to drink water, and I'm not drinking enough water. So
I just saw what Holly said. The answer is yes. Cardinal Barrel Proof is stellar, and you should buy the rest of them before I can from Charles and Holly.
Cardinal was awesome. I got a couple bottles of that.
The upstairs one's dead bolted.
Oh.
it was dead bolted.
Yeah.
With a key. Would the key work? You want to try my key?
No.
Where's Tony?
I think he's outside cleaning the screen.
Oh.
I had some
Well,
time to walk around, so I hit like three.
I have a key.
before I got
It
in.
just feels.
It should be the
so
same
late,
key.
so-
Well, that one's, the door's locked now too.
Oh,
Oh, maybe he's.
you want me
in
to
there.
take it?
No, he's not in there. I was like, that thing's not too high. And then I walked away, the door closed the rest of the way. Try that upstairs.
Yeah.
No, downstairs, right.
No, upstairs.
Oh, upstairs. Well,
All right. So, all right, we're gonna go to our last whiskey of the night.
Elijah Craig.
As people are running for the bathrooms
Yeah,
here.
the other ones, this one is heavy. Wow. Look
All
at the
right,
color
so
on that.
I took the group in October to Heaven Hill. They had a new experience. So Heaven Hill kind of went through a revamping of their visitor center and their experiences at the distillery. And one of them was it was called You Do Bourbon. I think that was the name of it. But basically, you went in. It was a pretty. I think it's their most expensive tour. If you're doing not a barrel pick, obviously that would be very expensive. But this one, they bring you into a kind of a tasting room. You go through 3 different samples. One of them is a Larceny barrel proof. Second one's a Bernheim barrel proof, which is so Larceny's weeded. Bernheim, I can't remember. Is it weeded as well? I think Bernheim might be weeded too. Yeah,
I
Holly.
think Bernheim might be a wheat whiskey.
Yeah, yeah, you know, you might be right on that.
I can look it up.
And actually, I think Bernheim just released their first cash strength or barrel proof release, which is pretty cool. Larceny's been doing it for a little while now, and Larceny's been great. Those have been really fantastic. But Bernheim, I believe, just started releasing their own barrel proof expressions as well. But then the third one is Elijah Craig. And obviously, when you put Elijah Craig next to Bernheim and Larceny, it's typically the way people will go, because with this experience, you get to taste all three, and whatever one you like, you get to fill your own bottle. So it's a single barrel of either three of them. So this one I did, it says Saratoga Whiskey Club right on the bottle. I hand wrote it.
So you could write it off.
This one is 65.8%, 131.6 proof.
I
So
get that.
if you needed a little heat,
Vinny.
we're gonna bring the heat.
Tobacco.
This was bottled
Oh,
on
definitely.
October 7th, 2022.
I got some sweetness there, the
I
caramel.
bought a bottle for
fruit
myself
breaks
as well.
the spice and the heat.
Did you do two?
And one for the club. So
Oh, that's nice. What does Nate say? Proclava?
Proclava, yeah.
So this comes with your seal of approval.
Well, I have to say, the Larceny and the Bernheim were really good. And I probably would have gone that route. But most likely the Bernheim. I think the Bernheim was actually my favorite for the three that I tasted.
Yeah, this is.
But
like-
Elijah Craig being Elijah Craig, I was like, all right, I gotta do the Elijah Craig. So,
It's,
Charles, you still have this in the store, or is this long gone?
no, this was a
great
special
listing.
thing. When you're at the distillery, you get to fill your own bottle.
Yeah, I want this for the States.
So, yeah,
Misunderstanding.
none of these are available in the store. These are definitely, and again, 6 of the 7 of these are not available even in New York. Or no, none of these are available in New
Wow,
York
that's,
at
nice. Save
all,
the best
so.
for last.
Let alone.
I looked up every single one of them, nothing.
How old was this?
What's that?
Age on this, age statement?
You know, they don't give that, Dave.
Nice and dark.
So Charles, I'm not sure if it's because this is number 7, but I don't taste 131 proof on this. So. It could be because number 7.
Is
Is this about $60, or do they have a different price at the distillery?
No, this was higher. This was, it wasn't over 100 though, but it was close to 100
Thank you.
for the fill your own. Yeah.
Oh, this was $100. This was $160, wasn't it?
Was it?
Can't get anything off the nose.
No, I don't think so. I thought it was like $100.
Open your mouth.
Oh, Chad's saying it was 160, but I don't,
160. Oh my goodness.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Maybe was the tour? The
tour was not cheap, so you had to pay for the tour in order to do this.
According to my notes, I paid for Charles's second bottle.
Charles owes me money.
Therefore, it was 160.
So maybe 2 bottles was 160.
Smell much better if you.
So they're getting.
I've done that before too. I don't think one bottle was.
Okay.
No, I don't think it was that
Over
much.
$100.
Yeah.
So this is barrel strength.
But the tour itself was like $50 or $60 a person. So
Yes, but it is very
you
high
needed to
quality.
pay that before you could even buy a bottle. So when you add it up, it's over $100.
No, you're right. It was
Well done.
85.
So lots-
85.
lots of
So there you go. It was 85 plus the cost of
Not
the
new
tour.
leather.
So
Not old.
now I just did I was in Japan, just got back a day and a half ago.
That's,
And I'm still awake, which is pretty amazing. But I tasted a Heaven Hill in Japan that was an 8-year, I think it was an 8-year Heaven Hill that was bottled by a Japan independent bottler. And I nosed it and immediately it was Heaven Hill. I mean, you could, so like to Rob's point, Buffalo Trace has their own profile, which again, good or bad, depending on what you like. But when you smell or nose a Heaven Hill, it's pretty obvious, like you can tell. And Heaven Hill is almost, it's close to becoming the #1 producer in the United States in terms of volume, which is pretty amazing, considering there's Wild Turkey and Jim Beam and all these other big players. Heaven Hill is almost taking over the top spot in the United States in production, which is really amazing.
Charles, didn't I see you post a dram of like Heaven Hill 17 years old or 20 years old, something like that? How was that?
That was incredible. So I did a year ago or so, one of our members was very nice and opened up their Heaven Hill 27-year bottle. And it was, I mean, it was very nice to be able to try it, but it was way too oaked. And it was, talk about sucking a toothpick of oak. That's what it was. The 17-year was beautiful. Perfect. Like, and I mean, in bourbon in general, 15, 17 years, that's it. Like, stop. Don't go further. The Pappy 23, no, it's just, it's oak. It's people just don't know. They think age is what it's all about. You know, with bourbon, it's not that way. Anywhere from 10 to 15 years is the sweet spot. When you get over 15 years, I mean, the Lauralee was good, you know, but oak is too much. It becomes too much. So my favorite Pappy is the 15, just because it's a lot of people like the 12 or the 10.
15 is the best.
But for me, the 15 is like that perfect kind of spot. But anything over that is just, it's ridiculous. Especially for the price.
23, it's like getting the alcohol.
Is there a like an age where Scotch starts to taste too old? Or is that because you hear with bourbon like that level where it's too old, but then with Scotch it seems like people always want older.
Well,
and
so
older and older.
again, it's all about angel share and you know, the climate. So Scotch can go a really long time, and it also depends on what the distillery is doing with it. It depends on the barrel, right? So if it's a bigger barrel, a hogshead or even a sherry, but if it's a maybe second fill, you can go a really long time without it taking on too much oak or flavor from that barrel. You know, with bourbon, you have it's all new charred American oak. With Scotch, you have a choice. It could be second fill, it could be first fill, second fill. It could even be third fill.
This and the double oak.
And, you know, when it's second fill or a hogshead that's, you know, lightly oaked, it can go a long time. We're talking 40, 50 years and still be really good. But if it's a first fill bourbon barrel or a first fill sherry barrel, I mean, once you get up to like 25, 30 years, you're reaching that point where you need to like really think about what you're going to do with that barrel. You know, like I've had some Bunnahabens that are right around 30 years that are fantastic at 30, but when you get up to 40, you're getting over too much wood. And you know, but people always think age is it, you know, so 40, 50-year whiskey is like, oh my God, it's so incredible. Well, from a flavor profile, it's really not, you know, but Holly got me a sample of a special cast from Craig Elke They open just for lottery kind of tasting, whatever. And that was a 50-year-old whiskey.
Oh, wow.
It was beautiful, you know, so I had a little sample of that on my birthday, my 50th birthday, and just to do it, and it was perfect. It was beautiful. It was not overaged, but again, it all depends on the barrel, and it depends on what their strategy is. But with bourbon, you don't have that choice. Bourbon is new charred American oak. Now, if you're not in Kentucky, if you're in New York or in a colder climate, maybe you can go longer and make it work. But in Kentucky, or if you're south, like in Texas, forget about it. Once you get up to 10 years in Texas, you're pretty much done. So it's all climate,
I'm planning on doing another thing.
you
in my
know,
house
it comes down to climate.
this summer.
It's also funk. With bourbon, you get the over oak stuff before the funk sets in. If you're talking about Scotch, because of the lighter flavor of the barrel, you're going to get some of that funk from the basement they put it in, and that's going to come through a lot more. So you get like rotten flavor, which sometimes is nice, but other times is very overwhelming.
Yeah. So yeah, location matters very much, and the what they store it in. So. But typically with the bourbons that we're seeing that are 15 years or older, those are mostly Kentucky or Indiana, you know, juice. Once you get up over 20 years, you're playing with fire. You know. Actually, I did a experience at Heaven Hill back in 2017, or I think it was 2017. Where they actually took out, you know, Pikesville's great rye. They took out some other bourbons, and then they brought out a 24-year-old bourbon. And the whole point of the exercise was to show you how bad a 24-year-old bourbon could be. And it was great. I mean, to me, it was eye-opening to taste something that they, you know, had this age statement on it, 24 years, and it tasted like I was chewing, you know, a stave. It was horrible. It was not what I wanted to taste, but you know, it's nice when the distilleries admit that. A lot of them don't want to admit that, but it's, you know, Buffalo Trace doesn't want to admit that a 23-year-old whiskey is too old, because they're making a lot of money on their 23-year-old
That's the
whiskey.
big myth, that old whiskey is, that's not always true.
He's like, it's.
I mean, the one thing I've heard about.
You guys like the Elijah Craig?
We've had some.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I needed to add water to it, but I liked it
Oh, yeah?
a lot after I added the water.
Yeah.
My neighbor's kid. Yeah, some of the Nashville barrels.
That was pretty smooth for the proof that it is.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I've had several of the other just general releases, the A, B, and C of Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, and this one is smoother. It's
Now, I do have to admit, it wasn't my favorite of the tasting when I was there, but I still did the bottle because it was hard to like come back with a barrel proof Bernheim and be like, all right, well, this is what we're tasting. I don't know. Elijah Craig has its own following, right? So
yeah. Very true.
If you get the right batch, it's good whiskey.
all right, guys, I'm gonna sign off. I know it's kind of loud here, so I don't want to encroach, but yeah, it's been an hour and a half, so we're good. Hope you enjoyed the luxury bourbon evening. We actually have, I will announce a couple things. So in April, we don't have anything next week, but the following week, if you're local we're doing Henry Street, but the week after, we're doing an incredible King's Family tasting. Holly has connected with the King's Family people. It's gonna be a all Zoom tasting. So everybody's gonna be online for that tasting. We're gonna have one of the founders online with us from Tennessee. And then the week after that, we kind of decided today, I'm actually doing a Japanese tasting with a couple of the bottles I brought back from Japan, as well as some of the bottles that we have in the shop. Pretty incredible bottles that we have in the shop. That will be a luxury kind of Japan tasting, but that'll be the week after. So I'll be sending an email out soon. But yeah, great April coming up. So.
And also in April, we're gonna be tasting a Lebanese. We're gonna actually
Oh
be
yeah.
the first.
Yes.
We're
gonna have an incredible Lebanese whiskey experience at the shop with some Lebanese food from Troy on a Friday. So perfect after work. Come up Fridays. Taste a little whiskey, have a little food.
It just hit the States. Yeah, so we'll be the first group. I met the owner at a trade show and they're actually really good. Trust me, I didn't know what to expect, but they're using some Lebanese oak for some of their whiskeys. There's two single malts and a corn whiskey, and they're really, really interesting. So the founder is going to come up to Saratoga and do a little class.
So what Friday is that?
So that stuff from like.
The
23rd, I think. No, 21st.
Friday the 21st. Yeah, we're gonna send out more details for that. Yeah, and we're gonna go get some. I already sent him the menu. We're gonna get some proper Lebanese food too. So.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah, that will be in person. That's not gonna be online. He's gonna be in the shop. I'm actually not gonna be there. I will be away, but Holly will be there with the Lebanese food and whiskey and founder. So you gotta come. All right, guys, I'm gonna sign off.
Thanks so much.
Hope you enjoy it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
It was fun.
See you guys.